We owe them more than our gratitude. They have more than earned access to quality mental health services, job opportunities, housing assistance, and the benefits they were promised. They're dead, Congresswoman Omar. Yesterday was Memorial Day, and if you're a Democrat, you really don't know what that means. Squad members Ilhan Omar and Cori put out almost identical tweets that seem to confuse Memorial Day, the day where we stop and pray our prayer of gratitude and acknowledge the incredible ultimate sacrifice paid by members of the military, giving their lives for our freedoms, our security, and the freedoms and security of our allies around the world. And Veterans Day, where we acknowledge those who are still with us, who served in uniform and are now in a retirement part of their lives. They're two very distinct days, and it shouldn't be that hard for a sitting member of Congress to figure out that distinction. We'll begin with Representative Ilhan Omar. Now, you can forgive her. She wasn't born in this country, but she should understand and acknowledge the sacrifice made of American military members who died saving her home country of Somalia. But she tweeted this out: on Memorial Day, we honor the heroic men and women who served our country. No, actually, that's not true. They did a lot more than served our country. They died for our country. We owe them more than our gratitude. They have more than earned access to quality mental health services, job opportunities, housing assistance, and the benefits they were promised. They're dead, Congresswoman Omar. They died for you. They died so you can have the right to be a blithering idiot. Way to honor that sacrifice. Cori, this Memorial Day and every day, we honor our veterans in St. Louis. Are they taking the same template here, or do they all share the same communication staff? St. Louis? I mean, I know she's a congresswoman from St. Louis, but that sentence is formed in such a way that it makes you think that on Memorial Day, we just stop and honor those who served from St. Louis. We must invest in universal health care, affordable housing, comprehensive mental health services. Is there anything that happens in this country where a liberal Marxist Democrat doesn't see it as an opportunity to spend more of your money on some program that makes them feel better about themselves? It's freaking Memorial Day. And you've got to spend it instead of just quietly thanking the souls who sacrificed themselves for you. You have to make it some political grandstanding of it. That's why we need universal health care. Not everything is about your Marxist utopia, Bush. Comprehensive mental health services, that's the other thing. They both talk about mental health. They see members of the military as victims who are drug-addled and suffering from PTSD and ready to snap at any minute. They're so despicable in the way they degrade the people who are much better than them, frankly, who have served our nation. And again, this isn't about people who have served. It's about people who have sacrificed and died. Economic opportunities for our veterans as we work to build a world free of war and violence. We should screen save these and see if they end up using the exact same tweets for Veterans Day coming up in November that they did for Memorial Day. It didn't get much better over at Arlington National Cemetery, where the official recognition of Memorial Day happened with the commander-in-chief and the defense secretary at the tomb of the unknown soldier. First, Lloyd Austin, who's lost quite a bit of weight since his health scare. You remember he had cancer and then refused to tell the chain of command that he was in the hospital and missing in action. He went AWOL, basically. Anybody under his command in the military would be dishonorably discharged for doing such a thing. But this guy, oh, no, he's a hero.
Ladies and gentlemen, our commander-in-chief has always stood up for our troops, our military families, and our veterans. It is my honor to introduce the President of the United States.
Very nice introduction, and honestly, no matter how bad I am in my life, I would love to have somebody like Lloyd Austin polish the turd that is my legacy because you can't get any better than that. Was that Joe Biden he was talking about? Seriously? I'm sorry, Joe Biden did what now?
Ladies and gentlemen, our commander-in-chief has always stood up for our troops, our military families, and our veterans.
See, I remember Joe Biden leaving our troops to perish in Afghanistan because of his half-assed withdrawal plan that left the security of our troops and also our civilians that we were trying to get out of that country. The security was left to the Taliban. And we didn't utilize the actual air base, the Bagram air base that we constructed out of nothing. It was just a bunch of sand and dirt when we got there. And then we created this beautiful air base that had layers of security to it. And then when we're finally bugging out of the country, we abandoned the air base and all the tanks and all the guns and all the military property there. We abandoned that to the Taliban. And we ended up using the civilian Hamid Karzai airport in the middle of Afghanistan, in the middle of the city there, instead of with all of our security and the military personnel protecting our airbase. Why did we do that, by the way? I'm told we did that because the Taliban wanted us to do that. And this guy, the president, decided that making nice with the Taliban was more important than protecting our troops and the civilians who helped with the war effort in Afghanistan. So we shut down Bagram Air Force Base, Air Base, excuse me. We head on to use Karzai Airport, which is a civilian airport, and then all hell breaks loose. You remember seeing the Air Force transport planes leaving with Afghanis hanging on to the outside of the holes of the planes. So then Biden decides, oh, geez, things aren't going well. So some of our troops who were, in midair heading back home, they do a U-turn, come back. Now they're going to do security and keep things ordered. Again, not at Bagram Air Base, which was a military compound with layers of security, but instead it was the civilian airport that was under the control of the Taliban. And wow, who would have guessed this happened? A suicide bombing terrorist walked right past the Taliban security, walked right up to our troops, detonated himself, killing 13 of our service members on this guy's watch. And Lloyd Austin, the defense secretary, has the unmitigated gall to say about the man who allowed that to happen. He has the gall to say,
Ladies and gentlemen, our commander-in-chief has always stood up for our troops, our military families, and our veterans.
Not to mention the fact that when their remains were brought back to America for the dignified transfer at Dover Air Base, the commander-in-chief, while standing watching the flag-draped caskets pass in front of him, stopped and looked at his watch several times. Yeah, that's the commander-in-chief that has always stood by our veterans. Before he was introduced with such a glowing introduction by Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, during one presentation at Arlington, it appeared as though the President of the United States took a little nappy poo. I do appreciate the soundtrack people put on that. Although we're going to get dinged with copyright, aren't we, for that one? I guarantee you we'll get dinged for copyright over on that other video platform. Yeah, I think he had a little drool on his chin, didn't he? That was who has not seen that? I have toddlers. You see them falling asleep. No, I'm just resting my eyes. You know how your head moves like a centimeter, but it feels like it's like falling off your shoulders when it sort of wakes you up, but it didn't even wake him up. I mean, he's almost 82. It's understandable, I suppose, but it's kind of embarrassing and, again, disrespectful to the people that he's supposed to be honoring there at Arlington at Memorial Day. I'm sure that he was just praying the rosary. He's such a devout Catholic after all. Or maybe thinking about his son, Beau. Because anytime there's any event involving anybody's death, you can count on Joe Biden bringing up his son, Beau.
This week marks 9 years since I lost my son, Beau. Our losses are not the same. He didn't perish in the battlefield. He was a cancer victim.
Now, I guess he deserves some credit for actually finally acknowledging the truth, because usually when he brings up the death of his son, he makes it sound like he was like riddled with bullet fire in a foxhole, crawling through the muck and mire of the war-torn battlefields of Iraq. The guy was a JAG officer. He was a lawyer. He didn't die in Iraq. He died after he came back. He was serving as attorney general. They wanted to prop him up and be a senator or maybe even president, because that's how the Biden family operates. So for the first time that I can remember, he actually acknowledges that his loss is not the same as those who were there to acknowledge people who died. So why does he keep doing this? Now, I know that some of you will give him the benefit of the doubt and you say, well, he's just showing empathy. After all, just like the people who were there are others who have lost a loved one. I hate to break it to you, but literally every single human being on planet Earth has lost a loved one at some point in their lives. Whether it's a grandparent or an aunt or an uncle or a parent or a child or a brother or a sister or a friend or a teacher, everybody, it's kind of a common theme amongst every human being that at some point people die that are part of our lives. So what point is he proving by constantly bringing up the death of his son? It's sick. And speaking of Beau Biden, I mean, he wants to talk about his son in these glowing terms, and God rest his soul. I mean, it's sad that he got cancer and died, but he does this as some kind of flex because he's supposed to be Father of the Year, right? I give you my word as a Biden. We Biden stick together. I've got all my kids. I've got my grandkids. It's what he talks about all the time. They're props in his political career. But he never really tells you the whole truth about his family and certainly his son, Beau. So, again, I got nothing to say about Beau. Guy died, and it's sad. Beau was married to a woman. Her name is Hallie Biden, Beau Biden's wife. That would be Joe Biden's daughter-in-law. Now, when Beau Biden died, Hallie Biden, obviously grief-stricken widow, was approached by a man to bring her comfort. And one thing led to another, and suddenly a romantic relationship was sparked between the two. Actually, it was a physical relationship, a sexual relationship. The man was Joe Biden's other son, Hunter Biden. Yeah. Beau Biden, his son, dies, and his widow, Hallie Biden, suddenly starts a romantic physical relationship with her dead husband's brother, who also, by the way, was married at the time. Now, I don't want to get into too tawdry of the details involved here, but if you do some research on Hunter Biden's laptop and take a look at some of the text messages that were sent back and forth, let's just say it was a volatile relationship. let's say there was a lot of sex involved, there was a lot of drugs involved, there was a lot of addiction involved, there was a lot of volatility involved. These are temperamental types. This is Joe Biden's family. He's father of the year, I'm telling you. It got so bad that Hunter Biden, in his drug-crazed dementia, went and got a firearm. He obtained a gun. And on the federal form that he was filling out to get that gun with his new girlfriend, Hallie, who is, of course, his sister-in-law, he lied on the federal form, it appears. Allegedly, he said that he was not using drugs or had any sort of history with drugs when you put in the federal form to obtain a firearm. That's a federal form, by the way, the Democrats, Joe Biden, his party, they demand that you have gun regulations like this. Got to do this, you got to do that, you got to dot that I, you got to cross that T, you got to pay this fine, you got to pay this fee, you shouldn't have this kind of gun, you shouldn't have that kind of gun. We need more laws, more laws, more laws. So here's Hunter Biden violating, it appears, one of those laws that the Democrats demand that you have by saying that he didn't do drugs. Then, during one of his drug-induced paranoia outbreaks, he freaks out and he wants to get rid of the gun that he's got. And so Hallie Biden, that would be Beau Biden's widow, his sister-in-law, Joe Biden's daughter-in-law. See, this is part of the Biden family story that he never tells. He just talks about how his son died, but then he leaves it at that. See, it gets really interesting after that. Hallie Biden, the widow of Beau Biden, who died, that Joe Biden just brought up, she took the gun to get rid of it and took it. This is a gun, mind you. This is a firearm. This is like a full-on gun. And she threw it out in a trash can across the street from an elementary school. It was recovered. Charges were finally brought. Hunter Biden actually is facing federal gun charges because of this incident. And he is going to trial next week. So that connects the dots on this whole warm, loving, sympathetic, empathy-filled story about the death of Beau Biden, because he just ends it there. My son died of cancer. Well, don't stop there. Then the story gets really interesting, Joe. And the fact that Hunter Biden is facing a trial this week, oh, you'll never guess what Joe Biden was doing this weekend.
President Biden also made a surprise, unannounced stop at Hallie Biden's house in Delaware last night. She is Beau Biden's widow and Hunter Biden's ex-girlfriend, who is also set to testify in Hunter Biden's gun trial in Delaware that begins next week. White House officials are saying this presidential visit to her house had nothing to do with that testimony. They say it has to do with the upcoming 9th anniversary of Beau Biden's passing. Jillian?
All right.
Yeah, I believe them, don't you? I mean, why would they lie about that? That's perfectly reasonable. He hasn't visited her or talked to her in years, but now he's dropping by to have a conversation about the death of Beau Biden the day before Memorial Day and the week before Hunter Biden goes on trial for the gun charge that Hallie Biden's going to be the star witness in. I mean, look at the lovebirds there. What a couple. It's the all-American family. Joe Biden, Father of the Year. Happy Memorial Day, Bidens. Seriously, Joe, next time you want to bring up the death of your son, tell us the whole story. And while you're at it, tell us what you and Hallie talked about Sunday night in that private meeting that you had just a week before she testifies in the trial of your son. We're just curious. Come on. Extol the virtues of what a great father you are. Tell us all about it. We want to share in the mourning process. We're waiting.